All right. So some of the best players out there are choosing to step away from playing in competitive tournaments moving forward. What prompted this decision? Also, now that we've had the new YCS Rising for a while, let's ask ourselves just how satisfied those receiving the prizes actually are. Not so much. So why is that? Let's talk about the complete joke Yu-Gi-Oh! Prizing is continuing to be, and just why exactly pros are quitting competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, please chime in with your thoughts because it is going to be a discussion that you can participate in. We're going to talk about the cost of travel, the pricing, a lot of these topics that I know you guys like to be vocal about. And it's good that we are because hopefully in the future, things can actually change. So please do share your thoughts in the comments, but try and be respectful and let's really just try and be positive as well. Of course, like the video if you enjoy it. So with that, let's jump into the video and let's talk about the tweet that sparked this discussion. And who other was it from than our last champion of 2024, Steven. He's retiring from Yu-Gi-Oh! Events. And as happy as he is to have been a champion, he realizes the cost of travel is simply too high. And according to his words, it would actually cost him to finish second place at AYCS. So is the pricing that bad? Is he spending too much for travel? Let's take a look at some of the answers people had for him. And let us also try and shed some light on the different perspective Europeans have from players playing at North American YCSs. According to Steven, flights would cost you anywhere between $500 and $1,000. Same goes for hotel. You do have to keep in mind that you gotta eat at a YCS, and cards, miscellaneous expenses and fun are going to cost you about $200 as well. There are some Europeans that rebuked this take and pointed out their own expenses. So in pounds, it would cost Jordan about 600 to 700 pounds, according to some of his calculations. And I would choose and bring up players that are really, really good because I know that they actually travel to multiple events. They are there and they know how much it costs. But that is not to say that Steven does not know how much it costs. I think it just comes down to what you choose to spend for, what kind of hotel or Airbnb you choose to stay at, what kind of flight you book and class and all of that. Even if some players claim it is not too expensive to travel and others say it definitely is. And there's also the third group in which there is a single person claiming that it is so, but so true. And I swear I'm not making fun. I just love this sentence so much because I think anyone reading it can try and interpret it differently. But all jokes aside, if you're trying to stay at a hotel for a couple days, actually eat and be comfortable as well, spending at least $1,000 or something like that does sound quite real. And it's quite alarming because if you are going to an event and you are trying to do well, you are also trying to cover some of your own expenses. It is only reasonable. And that is why I think this tweet is particularly powerful because just like Nash said, the incentives to travel and spend almost $2,000 per YCS is close to nothing. And therein, the problem lies. So we can fight all we want to about how much we spend to go to an event, but we do go there. And the ones that do well definitely do not cover their expenses. So let's shift to pricing and talk about that as well. As fun as it was to read all this beef, because if you find the initial tweet, some of the replies are crazy. Like people are fighting left and right, and it is actually content to read through it. But let's talk about the actual pricing. which we did get some new one in recent months. However, I think it is very far from being not perfect, just good. In my most recent video talking about pricing, I covered the newly announced Effect Veiler price card that the OCG is going to be receiving at their JYCSs. I think having a card that is competitively viable and stamped with the YCS logo is a very good idea. But the thing that we've been seeing over here is damaged frames. A whole lot of them. So let's dive into the second batch of tweets because this one is crazy. Here I have two tweets. One of them is from Julius Schwarzkopf, a very notable competitive player. And he just tagged Yu-Gi-Oh! Card EU saying, "Thanks for the nice card frame." And I just love the little emoji with the teeth, one of my favorite ones. That's besides the point. His card frame is completely damaged. It is shattered. So let's move on to the next one because one example, sure, a mishap. Two of them, maybe. But let's continue. The second one didn't have much expectations, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Card EU is still disappointing. Or maybe it's modern art and I'm not able to understand it properly. Well, that just might be the case. This one is shattered a bit differently, but at the end of the day, it is completely destroyed. And then we get to the third tweet, which is just, it's perfect. So Herman, an incredible European player, won a card frame and a pack of dice months ago, getting top 8, and it took 6 months to receive it. There is no dice, and half the frame is missing. So Herman's frame was not shattered, it just simply was not there. If you don't receive anything, I guess there's no way of it being shattered, right? Anyway, I think all of these tweets are just a great example of how much of a failure this frame idea really was. Because yes, us Europeans do get them shipped, although I guess that's not such a good thing. But players in North America have got to take them home somehow. And you guys already know that having a giant card with you and somehow having to get it home as well is a hassle. And then there's also the frame you've got to worry about. And in the last pricing video I talked about how Jesse Cotton, an incredibly important name in this community, gave away his YCS frame because it just made more sense than having to either ship it home or pay for it on the flight or whatever. And now this frame is living a very lavish lifestyle and traveling around. If you've seen the frame's Twitter account, which is just hilarious, I just think it is a complete embarrassment that YCS pricing is a laughing matter to begin with. Because besides the dice, which is okay-ish, and all of the issues with the frame, we're getting rubber mats for top cut, packs for top 16, I believe. And then obviously the first place does get accommodation to the next, either the next YCS or the actual respective WCQ, that being North American or Euros. Other than that, the price cards, like I said, they are not useful. So there's no incentive for players to actually buy them. No matter how many calculations we do, we have got to come to the conclusion that all of us are negging when we go to an event. But when you top, you at least try and be among those 32 people that nag less. And that's really not something that a card game should be facing. But why is that? Why are we complaining? It's just a hobby at the end of the day, right? This quote tweet, or reply, I should say, from Ding Kang Pham, and if you know that name, he was, and I do say was, because he switched card games, really good at competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! He was grinding, he was the Sprite master in Sprite format, so he does know what he's talking about. And his reply is pretty much on point. It's not about the profit, it's about the competition. Because if there weren't any other card games with much better pricing, we wouldn't really have anything to complain about. But looking at One Piece, Lorcana, Pokemon, it just makes us feel inferior seeing how their pricing is infinitely better and actually covers the expenses of people choosing to take time out of their life to grind a competitive card game, because you have got to put in so much work to actually be successful. And that is why I am personally against people saying it's just a hobby. You shouldn't want to have gain or monetary value from things you receive out of a hobby. But you play so much, you grind, you even pay for spreadsheets and masterclasses and coaching. And even if you don't, because that's a whole nother topic in and of itself, and you guys can share your thoughts in the comments what you think about paying for coaching. But even if you don't pay for that, you still spend a lot of time at grinding for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And time is money at the end of the day. Yes, we do love the game, but we are spending a lot of time and money to get a playmat and a couple packs and bragging rights. Sure, bragging rights don't pay for your flight. So with all of that being said, you are welcome to share all of your thoughts in the comments, but do try and be respectful, just like those tweets where people were actually going back and forth and having a discussion. And I think that's what really matters, because if we keep talking about some topics and issues and pushing forward in a respectful manner, of course, we can hope to see some positive changes be made. So thanks again for watching the video, and I wish you all a great day. I'll catch you in the next one.